I see Behram, Marilyn. If you folks can hear and see me, drop a hi on chat or maybe just unmute and say hi.
We can see you. Hi.
Hi, Ankita. All right, that's a decent number of people that we have seen here. Where's everyone joining in from? As you can see, I'm in Delhi. It's already getting chilly here, and our jackets and sweaters are already out. I just want to get to know you guys a little better before we begin the event of today. See Ambalika joining us. Marilyn from Mumbai, welcome. Ankita from Mumbai. Oh, we're just changing that setting, Veram. We'll make sure that you can unmute yourself. Benjamin from Chennai, nice. Benjamin, I hope you're staying safe. Last week was particularly difficult in Chennai. A lot of my friends were there, a lot of our colleagues were there. Aditi from Bengaluru, nice. All right, sizable number of people here. I think most people that we were expecting are here already. If you have other people in your team that are interested in joining this session, you can obviously share the invite link with them. We'll also drop that on the chat box here, so you can invite them. Also, we are recording this session, so if you would like to share this later with your teams or someone else in your organization, just let us know, and we'll share the recording with you as well, so that you have everyone else who's missing out on this session, who's also interested in learning what we have to share today. Lots of exciting stuff panned out, and we can quickly bring Chandralekha Chaudhuri to the spotlight if we can. Chandralekha, I think, has just joined us again. All right, she's here. I can see you. Hi, Chandralekha.
Yeah, hi. Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon, I can see you. That's
Are
great.
you?
Good.
Yeah, yeah. I think. Sorry, I just one technical problem. I think I got dropped out. Was that intentional or?
No, I think it just happened on its own. Just one of those Zoom
All
things.
right.
It's been a
Okay.
few
All
years
right.
using Zoom, but it keeps surprising us again and again. Hope that doesn't happen of today's event. But for the rest of you, Chandralekha Chaudhuri here. She's the head of HR at Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. She's got more than 15 years of HR leadership experience. She's also an alum of XLI Jamshedpur. And before we start, there's one thing that I do want to mention about her, which is it's an interesting initiative that Ujjivan has been running. I read about it on LinkedIn just yesterday. Is the Unpause initiative that's helping women bounce back and restart their careers after a long break. I think that's a phenomenal way to fill the gaps in the industry where a lot of organizations kind of look down on people who have had career breaks. So I think that's a great initiative. Congrats and kudos on doing that, Chandralekha.
Thank you, Nishchal. Yeah, it's a program we are quite proud of, and we hope to take the gender diversity baton up ahead with a variety of different initiatives we are doing. But Unpause is something we are quite proud of. We launched last year.
Excellent. I did see a very interesting video about it on LinkedIn as well. So I would encourage the rest of you to also go and check it out. Super exciting what things are shaping up like at Ujjivan. Today's event is called Power Hour for a reason. It's called Power Hour because it's packed with actionable insights, with real stories that can really help you become a great people leader in a people-led organization. So we'll spend the first 20 to 25 minutes with Chandralekha here on screen, where we'll cover the journey that they had before, during, and after implementing Amber, the chief listening officer in their organization. After that, we'll have Ajay. He's the VP of People Science at inFeedo, and we'll have him on screen to share his best practices. I'll talk more about that later. But we'll conclude with an extensive Q&A towards the end, where you're free to ask anything and everything. But the important point to note is that we already have a Slido link that's on chat here for all of you. So throughout this entire event, you can keep adding your questions there. We're going to keep seeing those questions, but we'll pick them up right towards the end. The interesting part is you don't have to then circle back and think about what the problem statement that you want to talk about is. So at any given point of time, if you feel like there's something interesting you want to double down on, you want to question about us on how this works or how this could be implemented, just drop that question on the Slido link. I'll keep repeating that in the middle of the conversation as well. Why today's conversation is interesting is because Chandralekha has not just been a champion user of Amber, but also a massive force in helping us constantly improve our product and the impact of our product. Ujjivan went through a very similar journey that most of you will embark as you bring Amber, the chief listening officer, to your companies. So that's the agenda that we have for the next 25 minutes. And I want to dive right in with this. Chandralekha, are you ready? And can we start now?
Absolutely, Nishchal. We can absolutely start. However, I mean, before we start, I'd like to give a little bit of a background about the kind of organization we are, because I think that will set the context on what were the challenges that we were facing or an organization like us faces. We are a bank with a small finance bank license, and we have around 21,000 employees sitting out of around 750 locations span India in 26 states. And people from different segments, catering to different segments and therefore being from different segments themselves. So that people challenge or getting feedback or, understanding people issues is, a gigantic endeavor. And I think that is one of the reasons why we were looking for a platform like Amber. So I just wanted to set the context so that people here who have a similar or they understand where we are coming from, and my answers will give them a little more context.
That's actually very helpful because inFeedo's mission is to make the voice of every employee feel heard and valued. And I feel a lot of organizations stop at the heard point where they're hearing employees, they're sourcing feedback. But for employees to actually feel valued, they have to go a step beyond. And that's where
Absolutely
has been a great example. So excellent. And thank you for setting that context. I think that's the why of you may have started looking for an employee experience platform like Amber. So I want to jump to the journey that you had. How was the journey for you launching Amber at Ujjivan? If you can walk us through the experience that you had at that point, what worked, what didn't work, anything of that sort.
Yeah. So, like I said, that Ujjivan has been an organization. We have been active for around 18 years now, and we've been a very listening organization. We've always been interested to gather feedback, identify opportunities to improve the employee experience. So initially, it was all about town halls and branch representative meetings and the physical aspect of it. During COVID, we also tried the virtual through things like Zoom and Teams, but we realized that we wanted a platform which had the ability to give us feedback from the remotest corner of India to the corporate office, where relatively we have the Gen Zs and the millennials, and the expectations were quite different. So Amber, we first heard about Amber. Actually, I heard about Amber in the year 2019 in one of the conferences, and one of the hook points was that we could reduce attrition through this. And of course, I mean, one of the things was that hearing employees in a non-biased kind of interface where people are not afraid to speak their mind because you have to ensure their confidentiality and all of that. So we were quite interested. We ran the pilot for about, I think, 3 months, after which we were able to see some benefits. And then we decided to take it forward for almost 20,000 plus employees. I think your question was, how was the journey of launching Amber at Ujjivan? So definitely, I mean, the first part of the journey of launching Amber was great because we got a lot of support from your team. The implementation team and even the selling team, I think, they all helped us a lot understanding the various challenges we could face. They helped us with the plans of adoption on how to do it because, like I said, that we have employees from different segments. We have people who understand only vernacular, who are undergraduates, and we also have like the really sharp ones sitting in the IT departments and the digital banking departments and the corporate and all of that. So it was about managing a very vast variety of individuals and how to sell it across. So yeah, and one of the things I'll definitely say, at least I'm not sure the audience if there are any BFSI players, but data security is a very, very big concern for banks and NBFCs also now. So while we were trying to onboard Amber, we did have some concerns that whether our data security team will, be able to take it forward, whether Amber will be able to satisfy their security concerns. It's not easy from the banking point of view. Security requirements by RBI are quite a few. But I must say that inFeedo made it really easy. So it's a very, very secure platform. It is one of the partners who have the best security scores in the bank. So I think that really helped us. So that was good. Second is that also, we knew that we wanted to bring Amber as a chief listening officer, or actually we launched it as the MD's assistant. So an assistant, an AI assistant to the MD, who will take all their feedback to the MD directly. And there won't be any mediators in between. There will be HR, few HR, but not access to all. So confidentiality, we decided, was a very important piece on this entire thing, because, I know of organizations who use Amber who don't get a lot of it because confidentiality is a question. So we were very clear that it has to be completely confidential, and HR and the MD actually are working together to try and understand the issues and also take actions. So I would say the initial journey of launching Amber was quite good.
Sorry, I think Zoom was not allowing me to unmute myself.
No worries.
It spoils sports so many times. But I was taking notes, some very interesting points that you shared. Thank you so much for sharing those. First was how you've got 20,000 employees, different segments, different levels of technical maturity, different regions, corporate versus on street. And that's a different level of complexity in itself. And the ability to solve for that with a universal solution, that was one interesting challenge that you mentioned. And second was, as all BFSI industry players are aware of, compliances and InfoSec is a major concern as well. And being able to clear all of those challenges and still be able to go out and implement a company-wide solution, that in itself, I think, was a big part of the journey. What I now want to talk about, and that branding aspect that you talked about, which is how Amber is the MD's assistant. I love that because that actually solves for the non-biased and the problem that employees are afraid to share feedback. It solves for that problem because now employees know that my voice is directly going at the highest level. And I'm no longer afraid of repercussion at like a senior manager leadership kind of level, right? So that's a great way to roll it out company wide. And that brings me to my next question. Ever since you started using Amber in the organization, how have the employees have the employees shared any feedback about it, about either Amber or about the process of implementing Amber? Is there any feedback from different segments of employees on what they're liking, not liking, or even feedback about the entire people organization at Ujjivan in terms of, hey, we feel like we are more connected, more responsive, anything on those lines?
So yeah, I mean, see, there are again two kinds of employees. Like I said, absolutely the blue collared employees, adoption at that level is relatively less. So on the other side of the other crowds, if I see also, our branch banking teams or our housing teams, our backend teams, all of those teams have taken it up quite well. Corporate office and regional office, the response is extremely good because I mean we have usage rate of 89, 90, 93%. So those are very high. So definitely this definitely works for people who are sitting on the system, and especially when they know that there's confidentiality. At the field level also, actually what has happened is there are lots of different kinds of issues that people have written to us about. So some people have written about products, some people have written about customer segments, some people have written about customer experience, career progression, supervisory concerns, infrastructure related concerns, and we have received feedback on the organizational culture also, and also things that they don't like and things that they feel needs to be changed. So one thing that we have been able to do, and we were very clear from the beginning, that whenever somebody writes, and especially the high and the high risk employees or the medium risk employees, we have to ensure that there is a response back. So that is something that we have done from day one, that responding to them at time, and we have SOPs on it and all of that. So there are people who are responding to them, talking to them. Not everything you can give solution for, but also the acknowledgement goes a long way. So definitely employees are very happy that they feel Amber is working. The other one is that when there are supervisory concerns, we handle it very delicately. There are specific trained individuals in the organization at senior HR level who only have the authorization to handle these cases, because you have to deal with these things in such a way so that the relationship doesn't go bad. Which is something I think it's very, very tactically difficult to do, because if there's feedback on the supervisor, how do you give the feedback? How do you make them change without them realizing who gave the feedback and they don't start getting vindictive about it? So we have done those things very carefully, and we have got a very, very good feedback on it. However, I would still say that the blue collar employees are still a challenge. Their adoption rates are not as high as we would like them to be.
Understandable. So I do want to call it out that the 80 to 90% adoption rate that talking about in the regional and the corporate headquarters, that seems pretty good. But in blue collar, the adoption is definitely limited. It could be a lot of cultural nuance. It could be also adoption of technology. It could be different perspectives that they have. And then we can go deeper into that. But one thing that you interestingly mentioned is that the way you deal with high and medium risk employees, and that you have faster turnaround times and better SOPs in place.
Yeah.
Those are interesting ways to work on the data that comes out of Amber, because it's not just looking at the data, but also using that data to solve the actual problem. And that brings me to
Right.
the supervisory concerns that you mentioned. Very interesting point there. So you mentioned that there is an internal team that's authorized to work on these challenges because it's a very delicate matter. So how has the adoption been with supervisors and managers? How has the rollout been like of Amber with this group of employees, and is there any feedback, any learning there so far? Yeah.
See, I mean, we have not really empowered our supervisors a lot on this, because we don't feel that they have the necessary maturity to deal with this. And also, we really wanted to respect employee confidentiality. So we actually very clearly tell our employees that you can use Amber without fear of repercussion, because even the heads of the functions don't have access to it. Because in an organization of this size, it's very difficult to ensure there's confidentiality with supervisors. Not going and asking people whether you complained about me or something. So what we're doing is actually we are keeping this well within HR, and we are at least where the problematic supervisors are concerned. Where it is stuff like infrastructure or product or customer segment, where it's not going to impact the relationship, those things definitely we are bringing with the supervisors, and we are taking deadlines, and we are going back and asking with the supervisors. And some of these feedback, actually we've got great feedback from the supervisors also, especially when the infrastructure issues or their product issues or IT issues get resolved without them doing much and their employees doing it. They are quite happy, and of course, because we are monitoring it and it is getting monitored at MD's level, so things definitely move faster. At the supervisory level, what we're doing is we're definitely keeping an eye out for all the feedback that we're getting about a particular supervisor. And then we are the HR authorizers who are approved to handle these cases, who are senior members of the HR fraternity. They talk to these people, they counsel them, they many times call them to the regional office or the corporate office, they give them a feedback, and then we also nominate them for supervisory trainings, and then we monitor them for 3 months to see whether that particular feedback has been rectified or there are further concerns. And we also go back to the employee to figure out whether things have gotten better. So that's how we are helping our supervisors.
Very interesting. And is there any concern, or is there any application where you've seen manager effectiveness or supervisor effectiveness go up, or have you been able to track the effectiveness, the quality of your supervisors across the funnel because of any data that you got from Amber?
Yes. So like I told you that we have a very strong supervisory development program in the organization, and that is there irrespective of Amber. We have that for various different levels of supervisors, including the HODs. So what we do is, if we find a toxic supervisor, we get them included or fast tracked for that particular program. And that program is designed in a way which will monitor 6 months. Like, they take feedback, train people. There is a 6-month journey. Then we go back to the supervisors and the subordinates. We do a 180-degree kind of a survey. So they are put on a track where we track their leadership skills, or we develop their leadership skills. So these people get fast tracked for that.
Excellent. So it becomes more pointed and focused as an approach, because now you can identify where we can create the biggest impact and put them on a fast track for better and faster.
Right.
So that's interesting.
And what we've also done is we've given out Best People Manager awards annually. So that helps them. And there have been a few, pulling people out and transferring them where they don't get better. So there's a little bit of a carrot and stick approach that we have to take.
That's great. I always love a transformational journey or a story where someone went from being in a very bad place to being an excellent manager and a mentor eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. We have those stories. We definitely have those stories.
Great. We talked about how employees are feeling about Amber and what kind of feedback they'll be sharing. We talked about how supervisors are benefiting from it and what kind of talk tracks and fast tracks they're getting on. Is there any feedback you have from senior leadership, from the CXOs, from the MD maybe, on how they see value being created by Amber, anything of that sort?
Yes, absolutely. So the MD and the senior leadership have definitely seen value in Amber. We also have our quarterly and monthly reviews. Like I said, that we have not given them access to the system because we don't want any kind of negative repercussions of the people who are speaking up. But what we do is every month we show them what is the satisfaction score, how many red employees are there, what's their attrition to the red employees, kind of thing. That is something that we are working on. But we give them an understanding of what are the people saying. And some of the things that the HODs or the senior leadership have really, really liked is the fact that a lot of their concerns are coming up right in front of the MD in those presentations, because things like IT system issues or product related issues or things that they would bring up, but maybe things are not moving fast enough. In these kind of feedback, when people speak in an organization like Ujjivan, it's taken a lot more seriously and fast tracked. So, and some of them have also got a little bit of a surprise. So some of them also came and told us that we didn't think that people will give this kind of a feedback. Then we have to handhold them in telling them that, this is what people are saying and we have to do better, and what we can do better as in collaboration. So there have been a variety of reactions as well.
I love that. And I know we're supposed to take Q&A towards the end, but Benjamin has an interesting question where he's asking, are these just negative feedbacks or areas of improvement or concerns, or do you also get feedback that's about what's working well, what's amazing?
Absolutely. And I think actually our last satisfaction score that I saw yesterday was, I think, 85.6%. So, 90% plus employees are actually giving good feedback. They are happy. They don't have anything additional to add. Also, the blue collar, I am personally very concerned about people who are not taking the survey, because we've done a lot of awareness sessions in our inductions. It's a part of it. We keep sending out posters, reminders, messages. When people do not take the survey, that worries me a little bit, because whether they are not speaking out of fear is something that is there in my mind. So what we did was we have started going and speaking to people, especially in the blue collar crowd, that because this is in vernacular. That was one of the things that whatever we do, we have to have that vernacular approach out, because like I said, that a majority of our crowd are people who are working in the States, and especially with segments where vernacular language is quite important. I remember when we were working with inFeedo, initially we had our worries, because at that time when we started inFeedo, it didn't have a vernacular language. And I must say that within 3 months of our giving feedback, you guys had been able to get it. And so that's why the vernacular language being there and them not taking the survey as much as we would want them to, it worries me. So we went back and did a survey again. Our HR VPs went and spoke to some of them to understand that why they are not speaking up, So when we spoke to them, I think there was a number around 75% of them said, we don't have a problem. Why do you want us to fill a survey? I mean, if I have a problem, then I will speak up, So, so that is also there. So I think mostly we are getting very good feedback. But yes, I mean, I think negative employees or people who are not feeling good probably they feel that they've got an avenue to, speak up. So we do get that bit also. But when 85 or 86% is positive reviews, so positivity is more actually. Detractors are less. But our idea is to identify those detractors, identify those people who are, because, people who are thinking or getting frustrated. So the idea behind Amber was to identify people in the early stages of frustration, not when they decide that, all right, today I'm going to go and resign. Because that doesn't happen, right? You don't wake up one day and feel I will resign. It builds up over time. So the idea is to identify those people and resolve their issues as best as we can.
Absolutely. Identify the people who are getting disengaged, identify it at the right time, acknowledge their concerns, and act on them as soon as we can so that we can start retaining those people far better. And it's an interesting insight that you share that, for certain segments of employees, a lower response rate doesn't necessarily mean that they're disengaged. It could simply mean that they don't feel that they have anything to be shared.
Yeah.
And that's also like a positive thing, except that, they have to be educated about it later. So very interesting insights there.
Yeah.
And I have one last question for you, Chandralekha. And that question is
Sure.
for all the people, leaders who are here on this event with us today, are there any tips or insights that you can share with them on, how to embark on this journey of implementing an employee experience platform like Amber in their organization?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a really great experience in the last 1.5 years, and we have learned a lot. We've changed our processes, we've changed some of our policies. But I strongly believe, and Ujjivan is a very employee-centric organization. We've been in the great places to work for continuously 15, 16 years now. But one of the main things I think is senior management buy-in is very, very important. When we started this journey, a lot of the people in our management, including our MD, had asked us that why are you using this technology? Because we have a great people platform which is physical, where we have these rep meetings and all that. So, but we explained to them, we showed them the data, we showed them the feedback, and that kind of candid feedback, even in physical town halls and stuff, you don't get, because people are afraid that confidentiality aspect somewhere stops people from speaking, and especially the ones who are introverts and maybe not the most vocal people. So one thing that we had was we had the MD and the board's support to invest in something like this and show them the returns. Second thing I would definitely think is that I think for a company of our size or any size, actually, there has to be a team who will monitor. A team has to monitor the adoption to action. Because if you don't have that, it's possible that the right actions will not be taken, the right follow-ups will not happen, adoption rates may not be high. So there has to be a small team which will monitor the adoption to action, like I said. Finally, proactive action taking is very essential also. I mean, just getting the platform will not help. Which we realized quite early, that if we take the platform and we are getting feedback and we are not acknowledging it, or we are not going and speaking to these employees, then after a while the employees are going to say that they only take feedback, they do nothing about it, which unfortunately has happened with a few organizations that I know. So that is also very important. You have to have an SOP or something in place so that there is acknowledgement, there is somebody going and speaking to at least the red and amber employees. For the non-risk employees, at least some kind of communication is going to them. Yeah. So I think these three things are quite important.
Excellent. I'll just recap because these are three very critical things. Having your leaderships and your board's buy-in and support to implement a org-wide functionality like this one. Making sure that you have an action plan in-house to ensure that monitoring gets converted into an action, so that you have a team and you have someone who's dedicated towards working on this. And third, which is pretty important, is that you have an acknowledgement and an action planning mechanism in place. And I think some of the amazing AI functionalities we released in this year include a smart acknowledgement feature that helps you do this at scale, and also an action planning feature that helps plan very personalized, customized action basis the feedback of each employee.
Right.
Amazing that you could help us with this, Chandralekha. Thank you so much. Please stick around for a few more minutes because we have questions for you. A lot of people are asking.
Sure.
We'll take them in the
Absolutely.
next 20 minutes. Thank you. And can we have Ajay on screen now? Hey, Ajay, how are you doing?
Good. Hi.
Ajay is the VP of People Science at inFeedo. He's got more than 12 years of experience across strategic HR and people science consulting. He's also certified professional in SHRM, and he spends the bulk of his days working with organizations just like yours to offer them actual analytical and scientific people solutions to business problems. So with that, Ajay, I hand over to you, and you can take us through the amazing insights you have for us today.
Thank you. I'll try and wrap it up in 10 minutes so that there's more time for Q&A. What an interesting discussion so far. I love the Q&As you two had. And on that note, I thought I'd start with a quirky question as well for our audience this time so that they can answer this one. What is the shortest word in English language that contains the letter A, B, C, D, E, and F? I know it's a cute one, but any guesses? You can take this up on the chat as well. Meanwhile, I'll just get my screen up. Can you folks see my screen, by the way?
Yes, Ajay, we can.
Cool. The cute question, by the way, in the segue to my chat here, it's feedback. It's the shortest word that contains A, B, C, D, E, and F. Feedback is a key pillar of good communication, in fact, of good relationships. And you all have chosen Amber as your feedback ally. And she has tricks up her sleeve to help you sail this journey with ease. But as you focus on day-to-day with Amber, when you get started with this initiative, we thought it'd be great to discuss feedback as an org strategy as well. Have sort of a macro discussion around it. And I want to draw your focus towards employees and employee relationship. One of the key tenets for this is a strong feedback culture, something that you see on your screen. It's an environment where employees feel at ease giving and receiving feedback and are encouraged by the organization as well to do the same. These quadrants are in fact 4 pillars of a strong feedback culture. Feedback is a continuous process. Feedback promotes open and transparent discussion. It definitely warrants action from the receiver of feedback. And these actions need to be communicated to the feedback givers. Now, let's delve into these pillars one by one, shall we? Our research partner recently, and we are research partners with IMD, published a paper that highlights how an AI chatbot like Amber boosts climate of trust and, in fact, engagement levels even in organizations just by sheer presence. Now, climate of trust, in simpler terms, is something that cultivates mutual respect, honesty, and open communication. But all the perks that you get with Amber, which is, boosted climate of trust, boosted engagement levels, they come with certain responsibilities. And right strategy with your listening is one of the key success to Amber. Make sure that you have the right listening strategy, which is, a periodic listening, touch point based listening, movement based listening when someone reaches a particular milestone. Make sure you're using multiple channels of communication. Chandralekha's example is the perfect one. The organization is highly distributed, contains different employee segments. So they have to reach out in vernacular, they have to sometimes reach out on mobile phones, and make sure that you customize your chat experience. You integrate multimedia in your chat. Someone who has just joined your organization, getting a message from the CEO, really boost their experience, helps them acclimatize with ease. The next one is transparency. Anonymous feedback, in my opinion, should be the last resort for an employer, something that offers them ease and comfort to discuss something really sensitive. And we have anonymous back for that. It's our ombudsman bot for that very reason. But as much as possible, we should stretch the envelope of open communication and uncomfortable transparency. What we've seen in our experience, it's a top-down approach that we've seen working really well, where your leaders take your charge and act as role models. There are positive, swift actions, and you share some of these actions with your employees as well. You formally introduce anti-retaliation policies or append, policies to strengthen integrity with feedback. Our customers who do this experience the joy that comes with transparent listening, because open communication boosts your people strategy by telling you exactly what your employee needs and where you need to focus as an org. The third bit is immediate actions. Now, it is something we say often at inFeedo. It's rarely survey fatigue that we observe in organization. It is the lack of action fatigue. Now, continuous listening warrants regular actions. In my experience, I've seen two big issues. First one is not acting on feedback, and that involves, not working on people to meet cases that Amber highlights, not acknowledging chats, not working on areas that need improvement. The second one is not communicating your actions back to your employees, which is a segue to the next culture pillar. But before I show you that, have a look at the metrics as well, what we have seen with successful pilots. And you'll see that a successful pilot with Hamburg usually has a strong PTM closure rate. It's 70% plus. They have a good ART between 3 to 4 weeks. Ambers frequently log in. We see an average of 3.4 logins per week in a healthy pilot. There are SOPs for PTM. There is an orientation for HR business partner. You can speak to your launch partners to understand what these are. Will set you up for the success. Uh, People read chats often on the platform so that they understand employee voice. And 6 out of 10 pilots have watch list enabled. If you have a complex distributed workforce, it's important to watch list these employee segments to understand, with a click of a button, what is the health of these segments. The last one, which is communication, is it's critical. It's one-to-one actions on ground create a positive ripple effect. We've seen this. I'll share this with my colleague, maybe my friends over a water cooler chat. If we are working remotely, there's always a digital water cooler. For us, it is Slack at inFeedo. But it happens organically when it does. But communicating actions large scale or small to your department, to your organization, creates a high tide effect. A lot of folks would see this and be more inspired to share that honest feedback. Could be a positive feedback, could be constructive feedback, but they'd be inspired to share it. Now, there are usually two sets of org-wide communication that we've seen working really well in our customers. One is Amber report or an update to leaders, which happens routinely. It usually contains note that they can discuss in their next department connector, the town hall. The second bit is org-wide communication in the form of a newsletter or emailers that go out to your employees. Uh, some of these examples you see on your screen. We have Behram on the call in Tata Technologies, Tata Click. These organizations use newsletters and org communication seamlessly, with the Amber initiative. It boosts trust and transparency in the system. I'll just do a quick takeaway. It's very important to foster a robust culture, and it involves 4 pillars. We discussed these pillars in detail. There's continuous engagement through ongoing feedback. There is transparency. There's fast action or prompt actions on the feedback that you get. And there's communicating actions to avoid lack of action fatigue in the organization. Make sure that you drive adoption through tailored listening. Speak to your people science member to discuss these strategies. Use multi-channel communication, multilingual support if you have a very distributed employee segment. Try and customize chat experiences, and your launch partner can help you set this up as well. Introduce feedback and anti-retaliation policy if you don't have one already. We have a sample ready for you. We have a couple of copies which can work for a variety of organizations. If you have one already, append it to ensure that Amber seamlessly integrates within your policy. Create a feedback response cycle by acknowledging and resolving feedback promptly. You have features like smart acknowledgement, AI actions to get this done with ease. Share Amber metrics regularly with your audience. Your audience is your leaders. Your audience are your managers/supervisors. Your audience is your employees as well. Do not forget this third category. That concludes my theme. I really wanted to talk about feedback culture, how to set this up in your organization, how to be more transparent with this initiative so that you can get the maximum ROI. Nishchal, on that note, I think we can do an open floor and start with our Q&A, which Chandralekha and us.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you so much, Ajay. That was interesting. Everyone, we are going to pull up the Slido link now, and we'll take those questions one by one. We can also have Chandralekha on screen in a minute. And if you have any more questions, please keep adding them on the Slido link so that we can cover them in today's session. We want to make sure that most of your questions are adequately answered. We're just going to pull them up on screen in a minute.
Yeah, I was not able to unmute myself. So I actually have been able to answer 2 of the questions, but I think I replied to Rishabh's question. So I think Varun has asked a question: how was Amber adoption in the initial 3 months and 6 months? So yeah, I mean, the first 3 months was actually a pilot, and our pilot phase went quite well because we had done it with a specific group. But after we went live for 6 months, it took us a lot of time to come up to a 60-65% of adoption. Our ideal adoption probably should be around 80 plus, but it's still somewhere around 60-65. So I hope that answers your question.
I'll just pull up the Slido link on screen now.
Sure.
This is the most upvoted question so far. So let's probably start.
Why don't we go down? We can probably start with the older questions.
Those are the new ones, Chandralekha.
Yeah, but we've not answered the first ones. I think it'll be fair if we do the older ones first,
All right, that's the oldest question, 2 weeks ago.
All right, okay. So how do you ensure adoption in the frontline staff? So like I said that frontline staff or the blue-collar employees are the area where our concern is. Our adoption rates are not very high. But what we're doing is we are now, so the best form in which they respond is WhatsApp, but our follow-ups on WhatsApps are not really working. So what we're doing is, we are trying for their functional heads or their regional heads or their zonal heads to create videos, and on a regular interval, we're sending it to those employees saying that, you have a platform, have your say. Even if you're happy, we would like to know that you're happy. Because one of the common feedbacks that I keep hearing from HR BPs is that while there are some pockets where there are problems and there are people who are a little worried, when we connect with them, they do say that, I don't know, I don't want my supervisor to have negative feedback about me and all that. And we tell them about how the confidentiality aspect is taken care of. But many of them actually have said that we are quite happy in our jobs and we don't see the need to speak to or go to MD because they feel they're speaking to MD directly. But I think a constant communication and creation of awareness is something we are betting ourselves on. What's the next question?
I just thought it'll be interesting to see if people use their names, because then we can connect back to them. So Saurabh has asked, is the success of Amber only HR team's responsibility, or how do you involve people managers in this journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. At this point of time, we are keeping it with HR and the HODs as well, because we present our findings to HODs without really speaking out about the names. We are also actually, the managers are also getting involved in issues which are not directly related to them. But yes, I agree. I have that question in my mind also, how to extend this to empowerment. I mean, how to increase the empowerment at those levels. But maturity of our supervisors is something which is still not in place, in my opinion. So that's why we don't want to impact confidentiality for empowerment at the moment. But we're developing our supervisor. We're investing a lot in developing supervisory capabilities, which is woefully difficult in the BFSI segment specifically. But once we believe that we have achieved some level of success, we'll probably bring this in. Yeah.
Very clear, understandable, and very interesting question from Behram as well, which is, what are the top 3 benefits that Amber has brought to Ujjivan so far. This also ties back to another question someone else asked, which is how are you measuring success here? So maybe the two can be tied together.
Yeah. So one of the benefits is that we in the BFSI segment actually have one of the lowest attrition rates. I can't say this is only because of Amber. There are other things also that we are doing. And but yes, attrition definitely one of the first or the big takeaways or the big selling point for Amber to the board from my side was attrition control. So that I think to a certain extent we've been successful. Secondly, we are also measuring the number of high risk employees that are coming up. So whether the number of high risk employees are going down. The other success that we have not yet started tracking, but we have discussed is that we are also trying to find out the number of red and amber case employees who left after our intervention. I think that is going to be a very, very important data point, which I do not have at this point of time. We're trying to pull that out and figure where we stand, because then that actually shows you whether Amber has really helped with attrition. The other one is definitely feedback. The feedback mechanism, like I said, it's not only people, it's systems, it's policies, it's culture. There are a lot of things that are coming out. And the good thing is our senior management is having a buy-in to do something about it. Our MD is extremely proactive, and when we have these meetings, those minutes are followed up. He asks us questions. He makes the HODs accountable for the feedback of their people. All of that.
Interesting. So the depth and the quality and the speed at which real-time feedback is coming in, that's one. The ability to identify people at risk, people to meet, and of course, like high and medium risk people and intervene proactively. And then a lagging indicator of reduction in attrition over time, which is a correlation that we have to yet to drive. But those are interesting three big impact areas that Amber has had for you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. This is also something I want to talk about, which is you mentioned that the pilot was 3 months. So do you think 3 months is a good enough time frame to show the success of Amber?
So initially we had thought about running for 6 months, but then we thought that let's make it a very core group of people who will respond, and let's see whether, so the idea was whether the feedback comes in the way we want, in the vernacular. We were one of the first organizations which helped Amber prepare the vernacular script as well, because we didn't want a Google Translate, which we know have horrendous translations. So actually we went through each and every script, each and every question, did all of that, So I think 3 months for us was fine, because we were able to identify that whether the system is working, whether feedback is coming, whether we are able to take action, whether there's, employee communication, this entire loop, whether it was closing, whether the system was fast enough, it did not give us trouble. All of these things were easy to judge. So I think it was 3 months was good enough, at least for what we ran.
Understood. I want to take one last question, which has received a lot of upvotes. It was added just an hour back. How do you make continuous listening an integral part of the overall HR process? And how do you get that 100% commitment from especially your team of HR VPs?
Okay, so I think, again, like you said, I think you said it somewhere that it is a top-down approach. And I think that is one of the cultural values for an organization like Ujjivan. We realize that, and there is actually a business case study about it, that the better employee experience actually leads to better customer experience. And the Great Places to Work, India has actually done a survey of all those companies in India in the last 10 years who have, continuously been in the Great Places to Work, and how the share value actually is triple than other organizations in the last 10 years in BFSI and NSE index. So what it basically proves is that if your employees have a better experience, it is fairly clear data-wise that your customers will have a better experience also. So definitely once you understand that, and once that is understood by the board as well, culturally you ensure that you plug listening as a culture. So like I said, that even before Amber was there, culturally Ujjivan had all the platforms the physical touch points where feedback could be gathered. But Amber, like you said, that makes it faster, makes it more AI driven, helps reduce HR BP's load a little bit, helps us identify problem areas and plug it quickly. But then there's also areas where you can't do much. So we have at least ensured that even if somebody is giving a feedback that we really can't do much about, we go back and explain to them the why, and that helps.
I think that's a great practice, because if you treat people like adults and just talk to them that I see your feedback, I hear you, I acknowledge it, but here's why we cannot act on it right now. I think 90% of the problems can be solved like that. It's just about an open conversation. So that's a great
Right.
tip as well. Thank you
So
so
I'll
much.
take one more question. I think this is quite valuable, what Varun is saying. How is Amber different from an in-house anonymous survey or a domain ID to capture, receive regular feedback? So I think if you use the platform even for 3 months pilot, you'll understand the difference. Firstly, it's a very, very flexible platform. The team working behind it is quite agile. When you give feedback, we have given 3-4 very important feedback, and those are feedback which I did not think it will get incorporated so fast, and it did. So initially, when we took Amber, like I told you, the vernacular was important for us. It was a purely English platform. And within 3 months before our pilot, they were able to bring the vernacular aspect to it. Secondly, they did not have an action planning area. In Amber, it was only about taking feedback, and we went back very strongly and told them that what's the point of taking feedback if you don't give actions, or if you don't have a place where we can track the actionables. So we know that even HR teams are working and ensuring that actionables are taken up and closed. So they also developed that, I think, in a period of 6 months. So they are quite agile, quite fast. They are the first people that I know, the first vendors who took up large language module. So you see that they use basically something like a chat GPT. It's not exactly chat GPT. The large language module they've used to pressy out the problems, all of that. So yeah, it's a very advanced platform, and the other thing is that I don't think that incognito feedback or anonymous feedback does anything. You don't know where the problem is. You don't know what to solve, who is giving, why they are giving. So yeah, anonymous feedback has its problems.
Absolutely.
I hope that answers the question.
I also have a very cheesy response to this, by the way, Varun. How is Amber different from an in-house anonymous survey? I think it's a difference between an iPhone and a calculator. One of these products is smart. It makes you more effective and productive, and it keeps getting better over time. I think that's the marketer in me talking about this. But before we end, I think a few people have already started leaving. So we'll just take one final question. Ajay, I'll send this your way. Nishant's question is, please elaborate on uncomfortable transparency. So how would you talk about that?
So this is contextual, I think, to the organization. There is a certain level of comfort in every organization that helps you understand what can I tell my organization, my employer. And it is different for different organizations depending on how feedback as a culture has been rooted in it. In a banking system, let's say I'm uncomfortable talking about my menstrual cycle impacting my work productivity, or I would want my manager to be slightly sensitive towards me when having these conversations. We also discussed uncomfortable transparency in the context of your minority segments. Now, in a banking system, your frontline could be the minority segment, your women could be a minority segment. You have people with different abilities that are your minority segment. And then you have your usual employees who may or may not be comfortable talking a lot of things, through a platform like Amber. I think this is a culture you'll have to identify for your organization, and then you'll have to work with your leaders in a top-down approach to stretch this envelope. If employees are uncomfortable talking about their supervisors directly through Amber, you'll have to create this space for them so that they can, which could be through anti-retaliation policy, through your supervisor encouraging these employees. And that's how you stretch the envelope, which is your uncomfortable transparency. That hey, it's okay to share with an intent to do something constructive with that feedback, which is positive action for me and for the organization. So, Nishant, it has to be designed for your organization. I think Behram is on the call, and uncomfortable transparency is something Tata Click also follows at its core. Uh, it'd be wonderful to understand, what it means for your org and what checks and balances to put in place. Who are the partners? Your supervisors and managers are your partners. Your leaders are your role models. Your HR becomes the facilitator of this dialogue. And Amber essentially is the channel through which you run this feedback, which can be uncomfortable at times. It's not always flowery, the feedback that come our way. I hope that
Excellent.
answers the question.
Thank you so much for that, Ajay. And I think we're about time for this session today. I once again want to thank all of you and especially Chandralekha here for joining us today, spending this entire hour for us. Lots of interesting insights, lots of actual actionables on what is working, what's not working, and how do we make it better when it comes to implementing an employee experience platform like this one. For the rest of you, if you would like a summary of this event and this discussion today, and if you would like a recording of it to be shared with your colleagues or anyone else later, just let us know. We'll be working on it this week. And if you need the summary or the recording, you can always reach out to us directly and we'll share it with you. So that's about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Chandralekha. And thank you, everyone
Thanks,
who
Nishchal.
with us.
Bye.